Catherine Veras. I am an NGCU student, and I'll be discussing area responsibility number 4, conducting evaluations and research related to health education. About 15% of the chess questions come from this responsibility. I personally have experience with some of this with my job. I do this sort of on a daily basis. So I felt pretty comfortable, and the way I study was by applying what I do in my job to the responsibility itself and all the different steps that I take that relate to the actual sub-competencies. As a health educator, we must know how to evaluate a program. As I've been doing research and also job hunting, I've noticed that it's a huge and very important growing field. We have to know exactly how to do this. As health educators, we're required to have this understanding, but also for not only for the chest, but also for our careers as well. The CDC's definition of an evaluation is the systematic, organized investigation of the worth, significance, or value of a program's efforts, the means addressing. It can be thought of as an assessment for the program. It's like a monitoring process that you do as the program starts all the way through the end. Okay, so I'm going to talk about what is the purpose of an evaluation. Just to give you guys a better understanding, I had a hard time figuring out how does it work and why do you do it, and I'll give you guys some key components here. Is to measure the quality of the program. Is it worth the stakeholders' money and time? This way, they will permit for more funding. If your evaluation looks good, you look good as a health educator, and everybody wins. The significance or importance to the community. Stakeholders want to know whether or not it's important to the community when it comes to the program. Is the program measuring what's intending to measure? Is it having a good impact on the community? And it's supposed to build credibility for the program and for the health specialist as well. And this way, you will obtain feedback and suggestions from the community in order to create guidelines for a new or better program. You want to know what works, what doesn't work, and just make those changes. So that's the whole point of an evaluation, and the reason why we do it is for all these things that I just mentioned. They must follow federal and state regulations, must be confidential and be done voluntarily. We have a responsibility towards the community and our ethics as a professional. The meaning of research is mostly secondary data. You use it to compare, you do your research, and you see what's out there, what has worked before for others, what didn't work, so you don't make those same mistakes. For just negative repetition, you don't want to repeat anything that was negative for another program. You want to grab what worked, what made an impact, and use it. Reliability, will the results be consistent and trustworthy? Validity has to be legal and accurate. Variables means that it can be prone to change. It can vary. That's what you're measuring, because those are the things that you want to change or improve. Then I'll talk about the evaluation types. There's several different kinds of evaluations. They can be used together. Some of them are used in the beginning. Some of them are used at the end. Depending on what you're actually evaluating, that's when you know which one to use and when to use. So, like, for example, you wouldn't be able to do an outcome evaluation for certain programs because it's all the way at the end. It's extensive. It requires money and time. So depending on your program, you might not use that one because it doesn't apply to you. So when you're trying to figure out which type of evaluation, you'll be asked this when you take the test. This is really important. They're going to give you scenarios. They're going to want to give you scenarios for you to pick from and for you to choose which evaluation time you must use for that scenario. So very important. And like I mentioned before, it's also really big when it comes to our careers. It's a big part of it. So get familiar with it, understand it, figure out the best way to use them, and just become really familiar with it, because we will be tested on it in several different ways. They will, I noticed that they put it in different contests, and basically just learn it as best as you can. I'm going to go over them. To formative is to make instant improvements as the program is being developed. So basically, you're grabbing information from the very beginning. That's how I thought out of it. When it comes to formative, I thought about information from the very beginning. Process gets a reaction from participants in order to make changes, such as, for example, the time that it's being offered, instructors' performance. This information can be obtained via focus groups, surveys, during the implementation phase. So as the process is going, you're doing this, which is process, and like that's the way I thought about it. It's during the implementation phase. Summative is at the conclusion of the program to measure what impact was created. Like it's like a measuring summary. You're gonna put everything together, figure out everything that you've done from the beginning to the end. Impact is to measure behavior and attitude changes. And by this, you want to know exactly that. You want to know what impact did you create on the community. Are there changes taking place? Are you going in that right direction that you were expecting to go? When it comes to outcome, final product to determine if the ultimate goal was met. Usually takes longer to conduct, like I mentioned before, requires more resources to execute in comparison to impact evaluation. So that's what I mean by we have to know which ones to use and when. Okay, so develop evaluation research plan. You want to know, do you have the money, time to do the evaluation? Who are you targeting? Come up with the right plan, sort of, so you have an idea which direction you're going. You want to see what others have used, as I mentioned before. Look at your literature. That's what it means by research and evaluation. But that's what this whole competency responsibility is talking about. You got to do your research and basically find out what's going on, what has been used, what updates are there, because you want to be up to date. You want to make sure the community is getting 100% of what they deserve. So assess feasibility of conducting evaluation and research. Critique. So if something doesn't make sense to you, doesn't apply to you, obviously you're not going to use it. Synthesize information found in the literature basically means the same thing. Like you're going to grab and choose from what you actually pertains to you. Qualitative and quantitative, I had a really hard time with this in the beginning, but then I think I got it now. Quantitative is numerical value for the program, how many, it could be done like as a tables, charts, it's a number. I thought of this in my profession because I do surveys in some sort of way in my daily job. So when it comes to a rating for the hospital that I work for, it means a value. It's a number. It's going to ask you a rating from 1 through 5. How was your experience? So, and we get this all the time. Like if you've been to a hospital, anyways, we do surveys all the time as customers. So that was my way of figuring out how to play into it and remember it for the test, because I noticed this is also very important when it comes to the actual questions in the test. Qualitative is descriptive information. So if I ask you, can you give me some suggestions on how we can improve our program? That's qualitative. You're going to give me it's a comment. It's a comment, it's a suggestion, it's a feedback that the community is giving you. It can even come from stakeholders. You can even go that way where they're telling you, well, I didn't like that you're doing it this way, let's do it that way. It's information, but it's coming from it can come from numerous places, like the coordinators, the directors, the stakeholders, even actually the participants, or from the actual educators. You want to know how they feel. You want to know what they have to say, because it's a joint effort here. Identify 16 data collection instruments. So we have to know where to get our information from. Make sure that the information that we're obtaining, it's actually credible, like it's coming from a good source. We're not just going to use Google and other websites and just grab and choose from anything. We got to make sure it's scholarly articles. There's actually like research documents that have been used and are actually credible. So basically, you have to have a plan. The 4.1 just means get all your stuff together, do your research, do your planning, know where you're going before you even start. Design instruments to collect. I noticed, I don't know if you guys are going to feel this way too as you're studying, the sub-competencies repeat themselves because it's a process, it's an ongoing process. And it's a circle. When you're repeating everything that you did for one, you're going to do for the other one because you want to verify. Everything has to be lined up in order. No room for errors here. Remember, this is our job as a health educator. It's money. We're being given the money. You don't want to risk the program from not having any funding because, we made a mistake. So really, really important to be on top of every single item, or just get everything together. Make sure you know exactly where you're going and all the information that you need. Establish validity of data. It's exactly what I was mentioning before. Like, is it accurate? You want to use current data also. You don't want to use something that was old or. This basically means the same thing. 4.3, collect and analyze evaluation research data. Same thing. Monitor data collection, management, analyze data using descriptive statistics. Descriptive means same thing. It's like qualitative. Like it's information. It's a comment. It's data. It's not numerical. It's info. Ethical standards. Here comes again. Like I said it before, and now it's coming up again. Very, very important. We need to make sure that we have a code of ethics as a health educator, and we need to obey by those. 4.4, interpret results of the evaluation research, compare results to evaluation research questions, compare results to other findings, which means that after you get your information, you're going to compare and figure out where you can apply those comments and how you can use those tools that you're being given towards your program, and find out exactly where to input each one so that they make sense, so it's a flow, it's a normal flow. You got to identify possible limitations and findings. That was one of my definitions, because we need to be prepared to make changes. As soon as we find out, we need to make those changes happen. And we need to be ready and open for those changes. And speak to the stakeholders, very important. Have that open communication going with everybody that's involved, because that's what's going to make your job easier and make the program better. Apply findings to evaluation research, communicate findings to stakeholders. It's going to ask you in one of the questions, it seems, that they want to know how you're going to write it out. How will you present this information to the community, to the stakeholders, to the directors? What kind of language will you use? And you'll be using simple terms so that the community understands, the presenters understand, everybody's in the same page, and there's nothing that's up in the air. So you want to use just simple language that everybody can understand simply. You're going to develop recommendations based on results and open it up for discussion and figure out maybe you need to just do some minor changes, and that's okay. Or if the stakeholders, and it's a matter of also compromising when it comes to the stakeholders and the community. Maybe you have to be open to middle grounds in order for it to be successful. What else did I notice as I was studying? I'm gonna keep repeating myself. We need to know scenarios. Very, very important. They're gonna want to know the three methods used to evaluate evidence, which is systematic, meta-analysis, and what's the third one? Pooled analysis, in order to figure out which one to use, and it's gonna ask you, it's gonna give you the information, and it's gonna ask you which of the method is it that applies to it. So we gotta. To be honest with you, don't wait till last minute to study. It's a lot of information. It is some sort of, it's a little bit repetitive, but you need it. So make sure you give yourself enough time to study, because it's a lot of material. It will be confusing at times, so it's important. Get all your data together, study as hard as you can, and best of luck.